bienvenidos. Me da muchísimo gusto estar con ustedes y darles la bienvenida a este panel, agradecerle a Guillermo y al equipo de Inmobiliare la invitación a participar en este panel. Realmente se trata de una charla o un diálogo para tratar de entender cómo está evolucionando el sistema LEED. LEED está en su etapa de piloto para la versión 5 y les diría que por lo que he podido platicar con Heather y lo que he investigado, se trata de uno de los cambios conceptuales más importantes desde que inició LEED en los 90s, a principios de los 90s y los 2000s. Entonces creo que el foro es muy pertinente después de haber escuchado y platicado distintas ponencias relativas a la sustentabilidad. Creo que tener a Heather aquí con nosotros nos va a enriquecer muchísimo. Muchas gracias y arrancamos. Heather, welcome to Mexico. We're very pleased to have you here. What I was just describing on my brief presentation in Spanish is that LEED evolution, LEED version 5, from a conception standpoint, it's a leap forward to what we know about LEED. So, as you know, we talk about putting together some questions to facilitate the conversation. But first of all, where we are in LEED, can you tell us about the situation right now?
Hola, yes, I would love to. Thank you very much. I appreciate the introduction. LEED version 5 is in a very exciting part of development. We've just closed our second public comment period across 4 versions of the rating system: existing buildings, new construction, commercial interiors, and core and shell. The existing buildings rating system opened for a beta period last November, which we are continuously running, and I'm very pleased to say that the first 2 projects through that beta are both from Latin America, one from Mexico City and one in Brazil, and both have achieved the platinum level of certification under that rating system. So definitely something to be very proud of, really leading the way and helping us to really refine that rating system. Through this beta process, we've gained a tremendous amount of feedback and made significant revisions to the version that was originally released. The version that just closed the second public comment round shows those improvements and those changes that are a result of the feedback from our community. So it's a very exciting time for LEED version 5. As we are currently planning, we're hoping to open for registration under all 4 versions of that rating system early next year.
That's fantastic news, and knowing that one of the pilot versions are happening here in Mexico, we can for sure provide some feedback and understanding our region in Latin America, which is one of the challenges that we have. So what were the main factors that led to the development to the version 5? And if you can elaborate as well if who were part of the key players involved with the development.
Absolutely. So one of the strongest focuses of LEED is our ability to really push the industry forward and to lead our community through this process. And one of the key ways that we've done that over the years has been through these ongoing releases, where we continue to raise the bar at the top end of leadership and also raise the floor for the minimum of what we're defining as leadership. And when we moved into LEED version 5 development, we stood up this process called the Future of LEED. Through that process, we engaged heavily with our global community, asking the question, what are the most significant challenges facing the built environment today? And more significantly, where and how must LEED help our community to address those challenges? Through that process, we established several principles for our development of the LEED version 5 rating systems, which we distilled down into 3 central areas: decarbonization, ecosystem conservation and restoration, and quality of life. And it was that very clear message that we received from our community that those were areas that we really needed to drive forward, that established our development approach for LEED version 5, and also was what we kept coming back to as we did that development. Are we really pushing forward in these areas? Are we focusing on the ways that we can help our community move forward? And in terms of some of the most significant players, I really have to harken back to our community. Our development is really contingent on our volunteers. I think sometimes people don't realize how much LEED really is developed by the users for the users. Our architects, our engineers, our consultants, our community at large, helping us to make sure that we're creating something that's really practical and actionable, And USGBC, we're just tremendously lucky and fortunate, I suppose, to have this community that's willing to volunteer a tremendous amount of their time, their knowledge, and frankly, their passion to that development process. So it really has been a group effort, and we could not do it without those volunteers.
Absolutely, and I think that a perfect balance between known and new concepts. I mean, you and I talk about resiliency, for instance. We don't know, or I don't know, that we have a resiliency bureau or agency here in Mexico to help on the development of these criteria that we will figure it out when this version 5 releases. I want to mention that on our practice, we work with the Tec de Monterrey new campus in Mexico City. And one main concept, which at that time was an innovation point, was precisely the resiliency component. We have historically presented some flooding issues on the area. We have earthquake situation, and really want to change the conversation about being an unsafe place or a place that you don't want to be in an event. To change the conversation, as I said, to a shelter to the community. So we, on that situation, we don't only change the configuration of the openness of the campus, but also work around this resiliency factor that you mentioned.
I think that's a really excellent example of how we intend to further engage with our community to strengthen these concepts. So things like the project that you mentioned and building an innovation credit, that goes directly into the development of the current rating systems. And you'll see some of these more nascent concepts for LEED, equity, resilience, where we really are trying to change the conversation. How can we create buildings that are helping our communities to be more resilient? And how can we create buildings that are increasing the equity in our community? How are we reaching out to the folks that are not necessarily in the building so that we're serving the community? And we will look to places like Mexico where you have some really specific understanding of how to respond to these resilience events to help us strengthen those elements of the rating system. Right now, we've introduced a prerequisite level climate assessment, climate risk assessment for all projects that requires us to look at the potential risks. It doesn't necessarily require action. I expect that in the future, we will require action in those areas, and we will use jurisdictional expertise to be able to help us make sure we're doing that correctly. It's something that I'm really excited also about with V5, that we have moved down to a 5-year development cycle. LEED V5 will be released in 2025, and we anticipate fully that V6 will come out in 2030. We are already working on that version of the rating system, knowing that we're hoping to help matriculate our community forward through these concepts. So where you're seeing resilience start to come more strongly in the rating system today, expect to see that even more in V6.
For sure, carbon decarbonization, resiliency, equity, health, and biodiversity protection. In your opinion, how do LEED version 5 goals align with the current trends in sustainability and green building?
When we set out to develop V5, one of the primary drivers was creating something that is market ready and addressing exactly what you just mentioned, those major trends that we're seeing today. And so I think probably the best way to address that is to look back at those sort of 3 impact areas that we identified and maybe hit on a couple of highlights. So in terms of decarbonization, you will see that this has a tremendous weight in the rating system. 50% of the points are allocated towards credits and prerequisites that are specifically focused on decarbonization. We are focused on operational decarbonization, looking at driving down the use of on-site combustion, increasing energy efficiency, still recognizing that extreme importance, looking at purchasing clean power, and also driving down the peak loads that are causing a lot of the design issues that we're now trying to face in existing buildings today. For new buildings, that means helping projects do it right the first time, so we don't have to do deep energy retrofits and deep carbon retrofits in the future. Even if you're not ready to get all the way there today, having a plan to get there in the future. For existing buildings, which we all know is a much more significant challenge, we're very focused on strategic decarbonization planning, knowing that within the specific context of every building, there is a plan that makes sense, trying to help buildings and owners figure out how they can get there. We're also, of course, continuing to drive forward the conversation on embodied carbon, transportation-related emissions, and refrigerant-related emissions. In terms of ecosystems, we're really trying to bring in those individual assets into the larger global conversation. What can you do on one building that will contribute to the overall ecological conservation and restoration of the planet? Thinking about things like pollinator pathways and bird strike reduction through bird collision reduction strategies. Also, trying to develop in areas that are dense, mixed use, and have existing infrastructure. And then lastly, quality of life. We use that term to cover several different topic areas. Of course, health and wellness, which is a cardinal piece of the LEED rating system, equity and resilience. So one of the things that we did in Standing Up V5 was establishing 2 working groups specifically focused on equity and resilience, telling us how we can bring these concepts more strongly into the rating system and more strongly into our design community. The ways that those concepts have now really shown up in the current versions of the rating system is something I'm very proud of through these assessments, and like I said, setting us up for that future iteration where we can continue to improve and deepen our efforts in these areas.
Sure. Relating to the impact that we might expect of LEED version 5 in the construction and architecture market in the coming years, I really want the audience, which is full of developers and professionals. By now, we have a very good understanding of how LEED works until now. And Joe and I talked about the big help that we have received in the past in several forms, LEED user, and everything to try to tropicalize some of the credits without sacrificing the rigor of the credits, but trying to accommodate on the local conditions of each region. Specifically, what you expect to have, what impact you expect to have in our Latin America region, trying to incorporate these new elements and to help the owners reduce the anxiety of this will be very expensive, this will be very not reachable for my project. So what is the impact you envision to have on this new version, which is a good one, but an unknown one?
No, absolutely. I think I'll take that question in reverse order. In terms of specifically the Latin American community, and this really applies to our unique geographical communities all around the globe, we are making a significant effort in LEED version 5 to create alternative compliance paths that very clearly reflect the unique culture of these different geographic regions, as well as different climate zones, different technologies, different preferences in construction. And we are very much intending to engage with our in-country, on-the-ground community to figure out what this means specifically to you. So it's a little bit of a different approach than we've had in the past, knowing that we're having these very complex conversations. Different parts of the planet are at different points, on the learning curve, and that we needed to accommodate that. We all need to move further together than we will if we try and dictate one region's specific approach to designing construction across the globe. So that is definitely how we intend to engage with the different regions. Specifically, I guess 2 elements of what I'm most excited about in terms of impact are one, of course, this decarbonization concept. And that's not just through certification. In addition to V5, we've made a significant effort to create tools and resources that any project in the globe can use if they want to get on that decarbonization journey. From our perspective, it is better that we are all going in the same direction rather than gatekeeping people from this really deep and thoughtful work that we put into how we can possibly decarbonize. The second piece is, it's not all new. In LEED version 5, we made a significant effort to focus on what was working and what we could improve there and continue building on, what wasn't working, what we should be pulling out, and what new concepts we need to bring in. So in that first category, historical successes that we've had, I'm really looking forward to seeing our community embrace what we're doing in the materials and resources category, where we're focusing on multi-attribute optimization. So as opposed to just looking at the climate impact of the product or the health impact of a product, we're hoping that projects start to really target products that hold multiple elements of that sustainability story. So this is exactly what we had in LEED version 2.2, which we built on in 2009, which we built on in V4, and now we're continuing to build on in V5. How we can continue moving everyone forward together. And like I said, with that 5-year cadence, knowing that we'll have an opportunity to, again, see how successful we've been with V5 and move forward accordingly in V6. One example that I love is environmental product declarations. No one knew what those were when V4 came out. Now So knowing that we can have that successful market transformation is something that I hope we continue to lead with.
No, for sure. And I remember Heather and I was having breakfast this morning, and one concept and one line that she mentioned is LEED is keeping the easy to play, hard to achieve. So back then in the early 2000s, at BEC, when we worked on LEED projects, it was very excitement about trying this new tool and in a way differentiate us and the clients to pursue the LEED certification with the other developers. So it seems to me that this version 5 will create that rigor and challenging for the teams and try to achieve the points and try to understand the design thing, tropicalize and start the synergy between the UGC without losing rigor, as I said, but easy to play. I think that portion of reducing the documentation requirements or making more easy in a way without changing the bar that LEED uses us to.
Exactly. It is a continuous challenge of making sure that we are maintaining that rigor, that we are defining leadership, we are driving the industry forward, but that we're not losing our constituency and the folks that really understand and appreciate LEED as a differentiator. So again, making sure that that floor, the certified level for what is leadership, is something that we can confidently say is leadership, but a lot of people are able to come into that and play at that level. When you get higher in the certification levels, platinum, we really expect that to be a differentiator. And in LEED version 5, we have released a new concept called platinum requirements, which any project that would like to achieve platinum must satisfy all of these requirements. They're very centralized around carbon in this version, but it is a way that we're really trying to continue to sort of re-emphasize what you said, easier to play, harder to win, so that we know that that top level really is the bleeding edge that is leading the industry forward, but we're bringing everyone along with us.
Absolutely. What are the benefits LEED version 5 will provide to the built environment? If you can double click on that and elaborate a little bit more, we are very intrigued on what's coming, but for sure the benefits needs to be tangible, needs to be something that the ownership of the client can, as I said, set a differentiator that helps their business. So in your terms, what are the benefits that these, or additional benefits that this version 5 will come with the event?
Yeah, we think about that a lot, and when I try and frame that, I look back at the beginning of LEED, and when LEED was first released, at the core it was an organizing framework for green buildings or sustainable buildings at that time, and over the years we played many roles. We have, as you mentioned, been a differentiator for owners and real estate developers in the market. We have verified that when people say, yes, this is a sustainable building, we can come in with that third-party verification that really puts the confidence behind that. And while those roles will continue in version 5, the two that I'm most excited about are LEED as the educator and LEED as the facilitator. There are more people involved in the sustainability conversation today than we have ever seen before. The finance community, as you can see at this conference, is so much more heavily involved, and we need to bring them into the conversation. We need to make sure that developers are thinking on a very practical level what these concepts mean, not in just one building, but across their portfolio. And so we've really built in these educational components, as well as trying to create ways to really facilitate those conversations so we can deepen our understanding together, we can become more educated together, we can share our experiences and our lessons learned, and we can really transform this market a lot faster. I know I mentioned to you one of the most exciting things in this community right now is I'm seeing a level of collaboration across different sectors that I have never seen before. And I think that that's something that makes me really optimistic about the future when we know there are a lot of challenges out there that can make us be a little bit more pessimistic.
Absolutely. When we also talk about these concepts that are like, in a way, you can see that are not measured in a way, like just like equity or healthy, or resiliency a little bit there, but those concepts that might be difficult to measure, I'm sure that these pilot versions and this project will provide a lot of feedback finally, what is your opinion on this very abstract concept? How to ground it into elements that you can measure and provide some clearness to the professionals that are putting together the documentation and more strategies to tackle this.
That's something, when I say LEED as the educator, it's also our community as our educator. We really try to build concepts into the rating systems that we are very confident and have a very strong understanding of. As we move into these more qualitative as opposed to quantitative concepts, the way that we're hoping to move this forward is what we hear from our community, what we see from our community, where we see these successes. Do you have a tremendous project that really took resiliency really far? Absolutely, let's recognize that. We have expanded the innovation category of the rating system to be worth 10 points now. We've removed a lot of the rules, and we're hoping that we will elect in terms of pilot versus exemplary performance versus regional priority. And we're really hoping that that will allow a project that, let's say, did an amazing job in resiliency to use that category to really demonstrate that, but also to show us what we should be requiring of other buildings. So using our community to help us push forward and to help build that business case or that justification for why we're integrating these concepts and what success in these areas looks like.
Heather, thank you very much for being here. Thank you for your feedback. We're looking forward to hear about these projects, and thank you for coming to EXNI.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, and please stay tuned for more about LEED version 5. We expect to have some very exciting news coming, and we look forward to sharing that with the Latin American community.
Thank you very much.